Hey everybody, this is Moss Jackson. Welcome to Mondays with Moss. Usually I broadcast in the mornings on Monday about 11:15, but it was driving back from the beach and couldn't get to my computer in time. So if anyone who's tuning in, I appreciate it. Anyone who watches this later, thank you. Last week I talked a little bit about a new idea called Love Busters. Love Busters, myths and limiting beliefs about love, relationships, and sex. Really, the kind of the minefields and the traps and the things we get into thinking we're in love, but we find out later we're not, you know? So, look, love is an incredible feeling. Yeah, hopefully, all of you have had the experience of love. It's just can be exhilarating. It just could fill you up. And just like a great dessert, you never want to stop eating it. So, love can be great, but also can be miserable. Love has inspired masterpieces and stories and music. There are all the songs and country music and popular music about love, love lost. Love can also trigger massive disappointment, depression, and suicide. Love is such a pervasively powerful, positive, and yet negative, and I think perplexing feeling. It changes over time, and we can get very confused by this. So, really, the question for me to present to you today is, well, what is love? How do you know when you're in love? How do you know that your love is real and that it's something you can count on? So today, over the next several more sessions, hopefully going to get my wife involved. And we're going to talk about what I call love busters, myths and limiting beliefs about love, relationship, and sex. So today, I want to talk about blind love. Love is blind. Love is blind. Wow. I mean, okay. So what does that mean? Basically means overlooking the flaws that others people see. They see the flaws in the person you're in love with. Shakespeare, for example, said love is blind and lovers cannot see what he calls the pretty follies they commit. The pretty follies they commit. They just don't see it. They have a blind eye to it. Now, why is it that love may be blind? All right. So there may be several ways we can look at this neurologically, psychologically, and evolutionarily. So this is not the romantic version of it, but maybe we'll touch on that too. Neurologically, what happens when you're in love, falling in love? Certain brain centers shut down. Logic and awareness of negative emotions. Logic and awareness of negative emotions vanish. You don't see the negative, so you're not thinking clearly. We can't think straight. We overlook the flaws. Basically, we're neurologically blind. We just don't see it neurologically, okay? Because these centers shut down. Another way of looking at this is psychologically. We think our partner is ideal. It's our soulmate. It's the partner you've always wanted. It's not. We don't see the partner realistically. We see what we want to see, and we do not see what we don't want to see. Basically, we're delusional. We're delusional. We just don't see it. Okay? And then there's evolutionary, which is nature's way of fooling us. Nature gets us sexually attracted, gets us physically attracted. We think we're in love, think this is wonderful. For what purpose? Since most of the time it doesn't work out great, sometime after that. Well, we feel great towards our lover and our proposed mate, and we don't critically assess anything about the person. And the pleasure centers draw us together. The dopamine draws us together, the oxytocin, for reproduction and species survival. Has nothing to do with us, has to do with our DNA. Our DNA is driving the steering wheel of the love buggy. Our DNA is doing it to us. So we have the neurological, psychological, evolutionary. So if I want to get kind of more practical, more common sense, there are a number of stages, probably 4 stages that we go through when we talk about love. One is the infatuation stage. I think this is what we mean by the love is blind. We become infatuated, we fall in love, we just are stricken as if Cupid pulled back his bow and arrow, launched it, hit us, and she's the one or he's the one. It's falling in love. It's like, oh my God, can't believe I was missing this. And when it happens, it just takes your appetite away. You want to do things you've never done because your proposed mate wants to do it. You don't like bowling, you go bowling. You don't like going to the ballet, but you go to the ballet. Why? Because your lover likes to do those things. And you see the world through your lover's eyes. That's infatuation. And then it's very interesting because sometime later, either 2 weeks maybe, 6 months, a year, maybe even 2 years, that's stretching it, you go into the disappointment phase. Oh, darn it. What happened? What happened to the person I fell in love with? He or she changed on me. I didn't know he or she was going to really be like this. You start to see the flaws and you feel let down. The person is not your angel. She's not, or he's not your idealized mate. You start to see the flaws and you think, was I fooled? Why didn't I see this before? People told me he or she was that way. I didn't see it. I'm disappointed. So it's really a strong emotional reaction. And then we sometimes, if we're still together and don't get out of it, we go into the power struggle. Well, God damn it, I'm not going to have a bait and switch relationship. I'm going to see what I can do to control and get this person back in line. So we spend a lot of time trying to make the person change. Basically a waste of time, but we struggle for control and dominance because we're not going to be screwed or taken advantage of. Now, if you stay in that state too long, misery continues. If you stay in that relationship and you get married, you now have what's called really a hostile, dependent relationship. It really sucks. Most people don't know how to get out of the power struggle, and they're stuck. If you see the power struggle and you say, look, it isn't worth the effort. I'm not going to try to control the person. He or she has no interest in changing. I'm out of here. So then you go back, find someone else, fall in love again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, a year. You become disappointed, go back in the power struggle, try to change. That's how mostly we go through the first 3 stages. If you're lucky, you then go into what's called realistic love, or what I call reconsolidation. It's where you say, wait a minute, hold it. That was my dream. That was my expectation. I wasn't really looking at the person realistically. I was projecting what I needed and wanted onto that person, and I could not see what was really going on. Well, maybe that's true for the other person too. The other person fell in love with me, and that person could not see what was going on with me, and maybe I have some flaws too. Very hard for us to see our flaws, very easy to see someone else's flaws. And then instead of, in the realistic phase, which is the 4th phase, remember infatuation, disappointment, power struggle, and then reconsolidation or realism, we come to terms. We accept the good, the bad, and the ugly. We stop trying to change. We stop trying to change. And we come to terms with that other person and say, okay, what's so bad about that person not cleaning up the dishes? What's so bad about that person snoring? It was so cute when I met him or her. Or what's so terrible about the person not cleaning up the car? I love cleaning up the car in the beginning, but now it's a pain because we have a kid or whatever, and the car is always messy, and why am I the one always have to clean up the car? So it becomes, how do we come to terms with the other person's flaws, and how does the other person come to terms with our flaws? So at that point, love is no longer blind. We have a telescope, and we see what's really going on. We're not massively disappointed. We're not trying to change the person. We basically try to figure out the art of compromise and how do we make this work? How do we learn to collaborate and make it work? All right, so today's not about how to make it work. It's about the first myth or limiting belief of love. Love is blind. So think about this. Think about in your life. Who have you fallen in love with? You thought you were in love. And by the way, falling in love is not the same as I'm in love. Falling in love is the infatuation part. This is a delusional part. This is a neurological blindness part. This is where we see the good part but not the negative. It's the worst time to make a decision for a long-term relationship. I have a number of clients or patients who make decisions when they're falling in love to marry the person, or say, I'm not going to sign a prenuptial, we're just going to fall in love because we love each other. Love conquers all. And then they're massively disappointed, as I say, 6 months, a year, 2 years later. So never make a big decision when you're falling in love. Also, do your best not to make a decision when you're disappointed. In power struggle, you may want to make the decision if you can't give up trying to control the person. But if you could tolerate going through these 3 stages and move to consolidation and really have grown up love, which is the connection, which is how do we take care of each other? How do we keep the attraction, but not expect that wild, fantastic sex and overflowing of love to be there all the time? You know, there was a saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Actually, I think it's familiarity breeds comfortableness or contentment. So we can move, hopefully, into a contented phase, but then there's that question of how do we maintain sexual attraction? Very interesting. Can you be contented or domesticated and still maintain that wild sexual frenzy? Well, maybe we'll look at that at another one. Maybe there's a myth or two about that. Okay? So anyway, hope you have a good week. If you're into the stage Love is Blind, when you're in the car, put on glasses that allow you to see clearly. And I'll talk to you next week. And maybe we'll get my wife Judy to join us, and we'll talk a little bit more about a myth or a limiting belief about love, relationship, and sex. Okay? Bye. Good seeing you. Thanks for joining in.